Good evening, guys. It's about 3 a.m. and I was feeling super productive, so I just thought, let's do it. So here we go. I'm going to go off notes because I feel like that would be best, but here is my proposal. And if you guys have any suggestions, I would love to hear it. This is still very much in a drafting phase, and I would love to hear your suggestions. So I am using Leslie Harrison for my argument. And so I'm talking a lot about the basis of poetry, why we write it, what it makes us feel. So basically, why people write poetry is to free thoughts within the self and in turn doing the same to readers. Writing poetry gives the poet the opportunity to enter someone's mind and cause them to think or feel. And there's a lot of power in that. I don't think that we really realize how cool it is that writers can manipulate people's thoughts and moods just by through words. I think that's great. So I really want to focus on that. And I feel that human expression is best demonstrated through imagery. Atmosphere is established here, and communication is through images. People may not know what exactly you're saying, but they will know the feeling that's elicited. So I think Harrison is very demonstrative of that. So I think that many people get turned away from poetry because they're trying to get it. And obviously poetry isn't understood easily at all. So whenever someone doesn't get a poem, they just say it's bad. But I feel that poems aren't meant to be dissected and poked and prodded. It's till it's nothing more than just a science experiment. It's so much more than that. And the craft is just being stripped away, and we're just that's a hard word, categorizing this theme and this format and this symbol. It's getting too mechanical. And sometimes I feel like we just need to appreciate the poem for what it is and not try to force it to just be. Just, that didn't make sense. Not just force it into something that it's not, just let it be. And this idea ties in with the importance of imagery because through the images created, a mood or idea is also created. And it's okay if poems make you feel a certain way, even if you don't exactly know why. So I'm super drawn to Harrison's work. There's so many poems. I have no idea what she's saying, but I'm just so drawn to them because her imagery is so dazzling and it leaves me with a certain mood, even though I can't explain why. I just think that's awesome, and that's such a lovely element of writing in itself that writers have the power to do that. So I think Harrison's work is very exemplary of this notion since she speaks in abstractions that surpass my understanding, and yet I still love and revere them since the imagery sticks with me and affects the certain mood within me. I've already kind of said that. But therefore, with Harrison's work as my guide, I argue that imagery is the most important aspect of poetry and writing in general. And that's a pretty bold claim, but that's what I think. I think that imagery is so important. So I want to learn more about it. And I think that Harrison is a really good example of that. And for example, on page 52, you may not have your book on you, that's fine. But her poem called Once, it talks about summer meadows and this youthful summer scene. And then a lot of the times, like in her poem called Parable, she talks about this wintry image a lot. And obviously, winter is kind of symbolic of death and darkness and sadness. So even though the words in between these images, I may not know what's going on, I do know the mood that she's eliciting and the sorrow that she is expressing through this. I think that's the coolest thing in the world. So I want to dive into that and find more instances of the way that imagery carries an idea and how important that is. But that's my paper. If you have any suggestions, let me know. It's not the most fact-driven paper. It's very much based off of emotion, I guess. So I'm a little bit worried about that. So let me know. Hit me up. Anyways, to answer the other questions that Dr. Brown asked us about the class and what we've learned in general, I think characteristics of modern poetry are definitely in the form. So something that I'm noticing that contemporary poets are doing is that their poems are taking a multitude of shapes and formats. It's absolutely cool and crazy to look at because growing up in school, we're just so used to the limerick and the iambic pentameter and like the sonnet. We're just conditioned to think that this is what poetry looks like. But then I got to college and became an English major and took this class, and I realized that that's not it at all. And yes, there's poets that still keep that style up, but that's, for the most part, what I've read, it's been completely strayed away from. So I definitely think that that's a trademark of the contemporary poet. And I also think the content kind of defines a contemporary poet too, because I think it's more scandalous and more politically charged. You see a lot more cussing and a lot more fire under their butts, I guess. Is that how the idiom goes? I don't know. A lot more, I don't want to say honesty because that sounds weird, but it's just this very authentic and unashamed style of writing that's just so charged. That's the best way that I can think to put it. It's got this very advocating tone, and I think that where this works and where we've seen it the most is through Danez Smith. Oh my gosh, he's great. I love him, but I think he's an example of the contemporary poet's use of form and content. So you see in a lot of his work the crossed out words and the scattered across the page ideas. So that's really cool because not only is the art in what he's saying, it's also in the way the poem looks on the page. So it's expressing a lot of different art forms all at once. And I think that's the coolest thing in the world. And I'm still trying to do that, but I'm not quite there yet. Maybe one day, but that really works out well there because it's giving, I don't know, it's also paying attention to the aesthetic of the way it looks. Also, I'm almost out of time, but Dinosaurs in the Hood is also a very good example of this advocate's tone because it is very politically charged. But anyways, it's been 7 minutes. It's been fun. It's been real. It's been real fun. So good night, everyone, and I can't wait to see what y'all say.